Thank you, Mr. Lineberger. The board is now reconvening into open session at 1:25 p.m. I'd like to remind everyone that all items on the agenda today are for discussion only. No action will be taking place at this meeting. Item 4 is public comment. We did not receive any requests to address the board as outlined in the meeting notice today. That will take us to our item 5, consent agenda. Were there any questions, corrections to offer on board meeting minutes? Right. Hearing none, we will move to item B, business office reports. Mrs. Barber.
Good afternoon, President Fitch, board members, Dr. Trujillo. I'd like to begin with our budget amendments. You'll find them on page 18. So the first item is Budget Amendment A, adjust student support services budget. This is just a cleanup of their budget, things that didn't get in when we adopted, but it's their request to move these funds around. Moving funds out of their function 21, which is instructional leadership, into instruction, curriculum, staff development, and guidance and counseling. Budget Amendment B, move funds to pay for our demographer.
This is the attendance zone study, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
This is to do the reconfiguration, yes. So we're pulling funds from several places to pay for this bill. Item C, budget funds received from donations for convocation. We received $3,500, and that will go into the convocation budget. And specifically, they donated funds for door plaque prizes, I believe. Item D, that description got cut off, so I'll read that for you. Move budgeted general fund expenditures that will now be paid from ESSER funds and an increase in indirect cost revenues from ESSER funds, and increase budgets for other areas of need that ESSER cannot pay for. So we are moving funds, we are moving expenditures that were going to be paid out of general fund into the ESSER grant, which will free up money for needs that need to be addressed that the ESSER funds cannot pay for. So I'd like to go through these individually. First of all, we're increasing federal revenue, and that is indirect costs that were not already budgeted that will increase our revenues. And then we are moving funds out of data processing, which is for Absolute Technology, Go Guardian, and ClassLink. We're moving those to the ESSER grant. We're increasing Function 11, which will buy band instruments. We are increasing Function 41, which will pay for a staffing and human resource review. We are increasing 51 to pay for generators. We are increasing Function 12 to buy library computers. We're increasing Function 23 for staff computers. That would be office staff, and that's district-wide. Function 34, student transportation, that is to buy a generator for transportation, as well as pay for transportation home to school for after-school tutorials and Saturday school, summer school, those types of things. And then function 81 increase is for the DSC annex remodel.
Ms. Barber, I just had a question regarding the increase for the, I believe you said generators for the transportation. Is that one of those generators that will be like outside in case the weather gets inclement and they lose the power?
Yes, which we experienced this year. Transportation
Right.
went down and we had to cancel school because we had no
Good.
electricity.
Thank you.
All right. And then budget amendment E, pull funds from fund balance for unfinished capital improvement projects, which include the NHS overall locks, TGR window repairs, police department window project, and fiber installation.
Where's that fiber installation at, Ms. Barber? Do we know?
It's everywhere.
Everywhere. Okay.
Yes.
What we're moving toward is a lot of our fiber are aerials.
Mhm.
And so what we're doing is closing the network. So we have a loop that if we have a break, then we can redirect traffic to go back around.
Nice.
So it doesn't shut down. So we terminate all our loops, but we also look at burying the lines as well, so that we don't have lines that are up in the air.
Very nice.
So.
Any other questions on budget amendments? All right. Next, I'd like to move to donations under $2,500. You'll find this list on page 25. We have donations for convocation from PBK for $500. $1,500 from Purdue, Brandon, Fielder, Collins, and Mott, LLP. And a donation of $1,500 from WRL General Contractors. And then a donation to the high school, $1,500 for fish camp food and supplies from eTech Texas, LLC. Any questions on donations? All right. Next, I'd like to move to the investment report, which you'll find on page 27. I feel like I'm a broken record here, but again, we are not earning anything noteworthy. We had a $5 million withdrawal into the general fund to meet cash needs. Any questions on the investment report? All right, now,
I guess my question, I know that I've asked you in the past is, do we know when that interest rate is going to go up so we can make more money? And I know with times the way they are, it's probably a little bit more difficult, but we're not losing anything at this point. Or are we gaining minimal?
oh, yes, I mean,
Okay.
it's very minimal,
Okay,
yes.
thank you.
And if you have any questions on any of the other business office reports, I'll take them now.
All right. Last call for questions on the last of the business office reports. All right, hearing none. We'll move to item C, purchases over $25,000. The first item, MSB, Mrs. Barbrick.
This is a annual renewal for our contract with MSB. They are the company we go through, which brings in, they collect information on services we provide to special ed students. Teachers and aides log those services, and then they file those, and we receive revenues. Their fee is 8% of the revenues we receive, and we are estimating that that fee this year will be $41,600.
Any questions on this item? All right. Hearing none, we'll move to item 2, workers' compensation renewal. Mrs. Barber.
This, our workers' compensation, we are in the second year of a 5-year agreement. And the estimate is that this fee this year will be $251,229.60.
Any questions or comments on workers' compensation? All right, that'll take us to item 3, the Region 7 contracts. Dr. Hill.
Good afternoon, President Fitch, board members, Superintendent Trujillo. This is an annual expenditure. However, the fees do either increase or decrease depending upon the year. This particular Region 7 contract is for the Title I Part A professional development support, where teachers and staff can go to professional development offered at Region 7. Some are, depending upon COVID, are face-to-face and some are virtual. The second one is our text resource system. That's our main curriculum frame for our core content areas for grades K through 12. And then the last one is the academic content cooperative, which is the 4 core subject areas. And again, it offers additional support for our teachers and staff to attend, either face-to-face or in person.
Any questions regarding the Region 7 contracts? Hearing none, we'll move to item 4, Hensley and Associates. Dr. Hill.
Thank you, Madam President. This is a contract that or an individual that we have used for the past 4 years. So I believe this will be our 5th year of contracting with her. She helps us with our federal grant applications this year with the addition of ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 that's been rolled into this particular contract. So we do have someone on staff that we are working with and grooming. So this year, part of Ms. Hinsley's services will be to mentor that individual so that we can increase their capacity so that one day we don't have to do as much with Ms. Hinsley. As you all know, she is a retired Region 7 Federal Programs Director, so she is a wealth of knowledge. Not only does she help us with our completion of our application, she does our compliance reports, and she submits the grant applications to TEA, and she's also very vital to us when we are constructing our comprehensive needs assessment, which is part of our district and campus improvement planning processes.
Any questions? Hearing none, we'll move to item 5, Lauren Smith, Physical Therapy Assistant. Dr. Hill.
Thank you, President Fitch. This is the second year we will use Ms. Smith and her services. This is about a 3/4 of a position, and that's what we are needing, meaning that these are the services that are required in a student's individualized education plan or their IEP from their ARD. I was visiting with Dr. Young prior to this meeting, and so we are contracting for exactly the services that we need from Ms. Smith.
And we've used her last year, is that what you were saying?
Yes, sir. This is the second year we'll be using Ms. Smith.
Okay.
Any additional questions? Hearing none, that will take us to item 6, SFA STEM Year 8.
Hard to believe, isn't it?
It is. I was about to say that. Dr. Hill.
I'm sorry. Thank
No,
you,
no,
President
you're good.
Fitch.
You're good.
Yes, sir, this is year 8. You can see in the narrative that we have a total of 136 participating students into the SFA STEM Academy for the 21-22 school year. You'll note on the actual quote, if you will, excuse me, that we had a total of 30 students who were accepted into cohort 8 this year. And so we've stayed steady at about 120,000, at least for the 4 years that I have been here. The number of participating students has increased, so that's a wonderful thing from year to year.
Wonderful. Thank you for saying that. That was going to be one of my questions is how does that compare? And number of students, how many did we have in the program last year?
Last year, we had let me make sure I'm reading this right, 131.
Right.
Prior to that, in 2019, we had 117. And then in the year of 2018, we had 112 students.
Wonderful. So we're maintaining that enrollment.
Yes, ma'am. In fact, it's kind of growing, about maybe by 5-ish students or so each year.
Any other questions on the SFA STEM program?
Dr. Gorman, this is a good investment, I think, and I think that was a really wonderful report on giving us some background and have something to compare with. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
We'll move to item 7, the TASA Curriculum Management Audit. Dr. Hill.
Thank you, President Fitch, board members. This is an idea that was floated in one of our ESSER 3 clearinghouse meetings, and I believe it was one of the directors that was talking about having an objective entity come in and almost do like a program evaluation. And so this is something that you'll see in some districts, new superintendents do just to get a bird's eye view, but it's very objective. You'll note in the narrative, it's a deficit audit. So they don't come in and tell you the great things that you're doing. They come in and they measure it against, again, audit standards. And I apologize, the packet was fairly long, but it was pretty extensive, and we wanted to make sure that any and all of the questions were asked. This is not something that we would submit to any type of governmental entity. It would just be something that if we select or if you guys would want us to do, an entity comes in, they're proposing about 3 auditors. They would come in and spend several days. We'll send them and give them lots of different documents that they request. They'll measure it against their standards, and then they'll give us some findings and some recommendations. Typically, what you find with something of this magnitude is the entity, which for us would be our district, would sit down and create maybe a 3 to 5 year plan in order to accomplish some of the things. The good thing about it, again, it's objective. They review the documents. They look at our board policies. They look at job descriptions. They look at all of the curriculum documents. They look at some of the programs that we're using. They look at some of the instructional materials, some of the practices that we deem as best. And sometimes they come back and say, maybe that's not the standard that you should be looking at. So again, this would just be something that we're doing internally, not because we've done anything wrong or that someone's recommending we do it. It would just be 3 people who have a level of expertise coming in and evaluating us against their standards.
Dr. Hill, the fact that we have adopted now all new language arts for K through, 5th, was it?
K through 5.
Is that going to mess up how accurate of an audit they can give us, because they really don't have any?
It's a great point. So, and that would be one of the things that would come up in the narrative or the discussions or the interviews. Mm-hmm. And so while it may not be a finding, they could clearly look at what are some of the instructional materials that we should be seeing implemented in the classrooms and or during a teacher collaborative planning session. And they might be able to give us a little bit of feedback. But I think that's a wonderful question that we would definitely have to take into consideration, that, while we are changing from I guess a basal reader, that we're moving to this. So there might be, yeah. So I think it would just be something that they might not necessarily find it to be a finding, but it would just be a good piece of information for them to have.
I was just wondering if they would have good suggestions on how we could get teachers trained, for new material and stuff. Do they ever do that? Do they ever give suggestions and guidance on how we could improve?
Yes, ma'am. And
Okay.
I hope I'm asking I'm hearing what you're asking, is
Oh.
that, yes, ma'am, in the recommendation section,
You know,
there
since
will-
we've got new material coming
ma'am.
in and they really can't report on its effectiveness, would they have some suggestions on how to?
they do, but of course, they're very cautious because
Of
they're
course.
not going to, pinpoint a specific product
Mhm.
because they're an objective entity and they're not, they don't want to give like preferential treatment.
Right.
You know what I'm trying to say? I'm sorry,
Mhm.
I've lost my
Mhm.
words. They're not going to endorse a particular product. It would just be, what are the best practices, whether it's cooperative learning.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Best practices. That's what I was
Yes,
wondering,
ma'am.
not
So they may not
endorsement of
say you need to
product.
go with Kagan for cooperative learning, or if you're doing, project-based learning, you need to go to the Buck Institute. They would just say,
Yeah.
project-based learning is a good instructional model to
Right.
use.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Does that make sense?
I might add something to that as well. Is first and foremost, Dr. Hill, you and your staff, I do appreciate the transparency that we're going to go to as we move forward with this audit. They're looking under the hood. Some of the things that we've made a commitment to go for, they're also looking for alignment. We're fixing to spend thousands of dollars that in the direction with ESSER funds that are going to be complementing the instruction. So some of the feedback that we'll get from these, even though it's an internal audit provided from an external source with this, will come in and give some valuable insight in the direction that we're going. They're not product specific. They're just seeing how the alignment is with the Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills. What does the application look like? Are we doing it with fidelity? Are we following through with the way it's been designed to maximize the performance of instruction in the classroom? And they're looking everywhere from the classroom to the facilitators and the leadership that we provide at the district level, all the way to the classroom. So it's a full approach. And they'll see some effective things that we've done, but they'll also see some things that are redundant that may be not cost effective. And even though we've made commitments in one direction, every curriculum that we could have ever selected, they all say they're the best. Well, we picked one, we said this is the best, so how are you going to get the best direction in the direction that we're going? What we don't want, and they won't do this, is we've made a commitment to go one direction with some academics. They're not going to come in and say, well, you should have thought going this other direction. No, we've committed one direction. Now how can we leverage that to the best ability for our teachers by empowering our support staff at the district level? Also looking at the staffing models that we may have to meet the needs instructionally for our folks. Do we have an adequate amount of support from our curriculum APs? What are they doing? What do our PLCs look like? Are we diving into the data? So it's pretty inclusive. And I might preface this, we did this with CTE. We did this with our technology. We've done the audits. Curriculum is one that's just a massive area that we're looking at, because now we're going into the teachers close their doors and the instruction happens. Lisa, she's familiar to doing this. Every year she does an audit with regards to the financial side of it. This is something that we needed to do on the curricular side.
This is just excellent because in the last 5 years, our teaching staff has changed in its, they're younger. And so we have to change how we give professional development and stuff. And so having this outside party come in and help identify things, I think is very, very helpful.
I have a question. I'm just curious, in terms of the TASA, their audit, do they gear it towards the size of district that we have, or is it like a cookie cutter where they do all districts the same way? Or do they specifically look at our district in the areas that we're wanting them to look at?
So they look at our areas. I mean, the audit standards are the same. They're consistent across the nation.
Okay.
So to your point, but then, yes, and you'll notice in the back of the narrative page of all the documents that they will collect, it is just our district.
Okay.
So those 3 auditors will be assigned our district for many, many, many months of reviewing documents and interviews, which will be confidential. They'll interview the board, the superintendent, try to, get an idea of where it is that we are headed, and then they'll make sure that that's the direction. So while the audit standards might be considered cookie cutter because they're standards, it will be specifically to NISD.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Abt, I tried to read the whole thing, and it's a very detail. And actually, they tell you exactly what they look in, how to evaluate, which gives us to the teachers a heads up to start going that direction. I'm very impressed with that program.
Thank you.
And to Mr. Montoya's point, TASA is a large organization. And what is wonderful is that they have staff members that are geared toward the mindset of maybe the Metroplex. Then you have a small rural school district. Then you have urban school districts. I'm almost certain, and they do this typically, is they'll find the folks that understand the dynamics of Nacogdoches and the financial commitments that we have, and the limitations that we may have financially, and the support staff that we have. Whereas if they had somebody going into the Metroplex, they have a huge staff that serves in Dr. Hill's department. Well, we don't have a huge staff that's there. So they'll align it to meet the needs and the dynamics that we have, but they have one set of a rubric that they're looking. It doesn't change from place to place, but it's the person that's driving it coming into the uniqueness of Nacogdoches. So
I would just like to echo Ms. Epps and Mr. Nerimon's enthusiasm for this. I'm so excited when we received the agenda information, very tickled that we're going this direction. I think sometime back we did, as you mentioned earlier, an audit of our IT,
yes.
and that was beneficial, helped provide some direction to you for some areas of improvement. So I hope this one will be as productive. For our community that's watching this, Dr. Hill, could you tell them, we keep using the acronym TASA. Can you tell them what that is? What organization that is?
Texas Association of School Administrators.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for that clarification.
Any other questions or comments? All right. Hearing none, we'll go to item D, adoption of tax rate for the 2021-2022 fiscal year. Ms. Barbary.
This is our annual tax adoption that we go through every year. And this is the second year where we are under a new system where TEA determines our tax rate. We submit to them a survey in August of our property tax, our certified property tax values. They go through a computation. Well, this year, they have determined that our tax rate needs to be lower. I don't know if you remember, but the budget was built on a tax rate for general operating of 1.0547. And they came back with a 1.0213. This is due to an increase in our property values. If your property values increase too much, then they will lower your tax rate. That has always been a component of the tax system. So we are recommending approval of a tax rate of 1.2663 per $100 of valuation of the 21-22 budget. That breaks down to 1.0213 for maintenance and operations and 0.245 for principal and interest on our debts.
So what was our rate last year?
Total or?
Total.
I believe it was 1.2997. So because our property values went up, we will not lose funds.
You're reading my mind. That was going to be my next question. Will this require any budget changes from what we adopted since it is a lower rate?
I don't believe so, but.
Because in theory, we should still be netting the same amount.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. When I did a rough computation, I came up with about $27,000, which would, in terms of our budget, I wouldn't even bring an amendment to you.
And did our principal and interest on our debt, did that change this year?
No, it did not.
Any additional questions? All right. Hearing none, we'll move to item E, MBS non-corporate resolution. Mrs. Barber.
All right, this is a company we use, Multi-Bank Securities, for our certificates of deposit. We have a resolution with them to, in order to do business with them. And so this is just the annual renewal.
Any questions? All right. Item F is the Region 7 Purchasing Cooperative Resolution for 2021-2022. Mrs. Barber.
This is similar to what Dr. Hill just brought to you, but the purchasing cooperative requires a resolution to continue doing business with them. And the fee for this is $3,506.50.
Any questions? Takes us to item G, T-Test appraisers and calendar for the 2021-2022 school year. Mr. Martin.
Good afternoon, President Fitch, members of the board, Dr. Trujillo. In accordance with Texas Administrative Code 19, Chapter 150, each local school district shall establish a teacher evaluation and support system appraisal calendar. As well, the administration is recommending personnel for the 21-22 school year be approved as appraisers on page 118 of your board book. This is an annual requirement. I will inform the board that Mr. Whitaker and his staff have informed me that we will have about 9 more appraisers that we will more than likely be bringing back to the board next month, as we will be hosting a Region 7 workshop here in Nacogdoches ISD, open to local school districts to have their appraisers trained and certified for appraisal. Be happy to answer any questions that the board may have about T-Test calendar or trainers.
Mr. Martin, Dr. Groman, I have a question. There's a thing called board member burnout, because of the data we're asked to process. So when this is a question that came to my mind, is not the who, but the where. So just off the top of your head, can you name the 2 schools that have the fewest appraisers right now?
Off the top of my head, I would say Nettie Marshall and Malcolm Rector.
Well, I think you're right 50%. But what I want to say here is, if the data is friendly for us, then we can answer that question for ourselves quickly. Because I was going to sit down and write out all that. And I said, well, if it's like that for me, my colleagues and possibly the principals and other people would be interested. So one way that Ms. Barber gets around that is she prints the checks by date and alphabetically. So is there a way we could improve this to where I could answer that question in less than 5 seconds? Because all you have to do is sort it by name and sort it again by school. And then that way I know right away, here's where I know we're going to add more people, but it just lets everybody know where they stand. It lets us know. It lets the other people that are in administration know. It lets our shareholders know. I think that might be something that would be beneficial to us. At least I know it would be beneficial for me, because I am interested to know where and how many. Okay?
Okay, certainly we can rearrange the list.
Help me understand the question. What exactly are we asking?
Well, may I follow up to that
Sure,
question, and it may help, because you beat me to it, but one of the first things I noticed here, just glancing that list, and you're right, if it was ordered by campus and one, it'd be easier to see. But I notice Carpenter and Nettie both only have one person currently that can do the T-test evaluations. while Nettie is a fairly small campus, that might be doable, although still a stretch. Carpenter, without a doubt, is a large enough campus, but I appreciate you letting us know up front that there's going to be more coming. But I share your concern from the state trainings that we've been into. T-TESS is an exhaustive process that takes a lot. And I know one of the things that they've taught us in our board trainings is make sure you have ample staff trained to be able to handle this because it is so time consuming. But I think that's what he's getting at is we've got 2 campuses here listed that right as of today only have one person on each campus. That's
Yes.
not realistic, right?
Right, and that's why I wanted to make the board aware that there are
Yeah.
other trainers that are being trained as well. You see the folks at the DSC, they are also going to be appraisers as well, so they can do walkthroughs while these others are being certified.
That was one of the things mentioned and one of the board trainings I went to about this topic was, don't, make sure they're helping each other and they're, you've got T-test appraisers on one campus that can come assess and help at another campus because it's a lot of work.
Well, one of the things we've got to be very cautious though when it comes to the teacher appraisal system, we've got inter-rater reliability that happens within a campus. And inter-rater reliability plays a role in a specific site. Very critical as we explore some grants that deal with teacher performances and don't want to let the cat out of the bag. But inter-rater reliability plays an integral part on a specific campus. The problem that you wind up having if you don't have that really well within a team of administrators on one site, when you pull them from another campus and they come over, it can invalidate some of that inter-rater reliability because an administrator, an assistant principal, is going to evaluate based on the leadership of that campus, which is set by the building principal and what they're looking for skills that are there. And even on level. So if you have an elementary campus and you have a secondary campus, the one thing that we're going to have to make sure of, and Mr. Martin can do this as well as asking for clarification, is on the particular campus, do we have enough evaluators that can be trained to provide some consistency of inter-rater reliability on that site? Now, the reason we have individuals that are off-site and at the DSC is that a teacher always has an opportunity to ask for a second evaluation. They didn't like the way the evaluation came through. It's always good to pull somebody from off-site that is trained that can come in and provide that feedback for the staff. If we don't have a very consistent inter-rater reliability when it comes to evaluating teachers, it can really change the dynamics. It's almost like the old adage, I'm going to ask mom because dad's going to tell me no. And so we don't want that playing in its role in evaluation. So I see what you're saying now when it comes to that. What we've got to look at is, do we have enough evaluators on a specific site? Unfortunately, the only individuals that can actually be trained as a T-test is a person who has been identified as an administrator and have the credentials in that capacity. Counselors and some of our other folks do not meet that criteria. And we can explore some of that. The cautionary note is floating administrators from building to building for evaluations. But we definitely can look at that, Mr. Martin, exploring it. I know we had a number of new administrators at the assistant principal's role that have not been trained yet. So when you look at this list, it's not a complete list because they have to receive the training. One thing that I'm excited about is that we are training them in Nacogdoches. We're not losing them to Longview and they miss 2 days of instruction to go up there and get trained because principals don't like missing their staff. So we've got them here. So some of our neighbors will be sending their administrators here to do that. But we definitely can kind of standardize so we can be fair to the results that we give our teachers, some great feedback. Absolutely.
Pretty good. Even if you look at a campus the size of the high school, I think I count 5 there just glancing through the list. And really, when you think about it, for a campus that size, is that sufficient?
Yeah.
So, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Right, that takes us to item H, the second reading of TASB Policy Update 117. Mr. Martin.
Thank you, President Fitch. If I may direct your attention to page 121 in your board book. The packet from the Texas Association of School Boards Policy Update 117 includes revisions to the policies CH local, CV local, and DEC local. Administration recommends the policies be approved as presented. I'll be happy to answer any questions you all may have.
Any questions? Hearing none, we'll move to item I, teaching of Constitution as required by federal law. Dr. Hill.
Thank you, President Fitch, board members, Superintendent Trujillo. Sorry, I was on the wrong action sheet in my hand. I apologize for that. This is an annual requirement that we teach the Constitution as required by federal law during the week of September the 17th. You'll see that for this particular school year, September 17th is during the school week and it falls on a Friday. And so this just assures everyone that we are in fact going to follow the law and teach the Constitution during this given week.
Any questions? Hearing none, we'll move to item J, federally funded professional development vendors. Dr. Hill.
Thank you, Madam President. This too has become an annual approval for us with the development of EDGAR, which are the federal regulations for spending of federal funds. So we have to go through the request for proposal process. It's because it's an aggregate amount of $50,000 that we will spend on professional development, if you will. And so the list is attached for you. So just so that you know, we do have a committee that has done this. And so we have, sent out the scope draft, for example, back on June 3rd. Then we finalized the scope to be posted June 17th. We sent it to the business office. It was posted in the appropriate newspapers and on the Region 7 website for the minimum of 2 weeks, which is required. And then there was a committee that met and rated these particular vendors. You will note in the form that you have of the vendors, there is the accepted list. And then underneath that, there is the acceptance pending SAM registration. That's a process that our business office helps us with to make sure that within the RFP documentation, everybody has gone through the appropriate checklist and we have everything done. So there are 5 that are still pending. And of course, just know we will not move forward with those 5 pending until they have received all the check marks and given to us by the business office.
Any questions? Hearing none, that will take us to item 6 of our agenda review, the discussion action agenda. First item